One of the many reasons that new developers fail to finish and release their games is because they get one crucial thing wrong about learning game development. They find themselves stuck in tutorial hell. Tutorial hell is a term that's used to describe learning without any real objective, which is where you learn something, or at least you feel like you're learning something, but you don't actually gain any reusable skills as a result. This type of aspirational learning can be a dead end for new developers because it feels good and it even feels like progress, but you're not actually moving your project forward. Which, if you're learning how to make a game because you want to make a game, is a real problem. After all, you will need to learn new skills if you're doing something for the first time. So just saying tutorials are bad, don't do that, isn't very helpful, since there are always going to be tutorials that you will need to take. And even then, the line between a tutorial that's useful and one that's not is actually really blurry, since even if you take a tutorial that you don't really need, you might still pick up random tips and tricks that you do end up using, or you might just feel generally more motivated to work on your own project. So it's fair to say that just not doing tutorials isn't really an option. Instead, there's one simple mindset shift that can help keep you out of tutorial hell. But for that to work, you're going to need to be able to tell if you're in it or not. Welcome to the 3 circles of tutorial hell. Why 3? Because people like things in 3s, and I couldn't think of 9. So what are they? How do you know which one you're in? And importantly, how do you get out? We're going to start with the deepest, darkest level of this analogy, which is the manifestation level. I'm calling this circle of hell the manifestation level because if you're down here, you're not really trying to move towards a goal. Instead, you're consuming content that feels like learning, but without an objective attached to it. This can be the worst type of tutorial hell because it's what can take up months and years of your life not doing the thing that you want to do. So an example of this would be watching game development content because you like the idea of making a game someday, and watching that content makes you feel good about that aspiration. But after you've watched it, the reality is that even though you might feel more motivated to make a game, you aren't any closer to actually doing it. You feel different, but nothing's changed. Now, there is absolutely 100% nothing wrong with watching content that motivates you and makes you feel good. There is a functional use for that as well, but it's important to recognise the real usefulness of it to you. So let me give you an example of how I use this. So whenever I have a soundtrack commission for a game, I usually alternate my working time between writing music and making content like this, which works well for me. I really like that I can work in different parts of the game development industry. However, it can sometimes be tricky for me to switch my mindset from content creator John to composer John. If I'm in the middle of doing something, like if I'm just about to publish a video, or if I'm working on something that I've really gotten into, it can be difficult for me to switch that off and swap to being excited about writing music. Now, one of the ways I get around that is by watching content about writing music. Just any video that's caught my eye lately. And I'll watch it at the start of my day before I do anything else. Now, I'll probably learn something, but chances are the only real benefit is that by the end of the video, I will feel different. I'll feel inspired and a bit more motivated to go and write some music. And this works the other way as well. If I'm really into writing music, but I need to spend a day on my YouTube channel, I'll watch a video about content creation first that gets me in the mood for that. The point I'm trying to make here is that there is a functional use for content that changes the way you feel. However, it's only useful if you recognise that feeling different is the benefit of it. If you consume content that inspires you, but you never do anything with that inspiration, then that's a sign that you might be in the manifestation circle of tutorial hell. Getting out is actually pretty easy. You just need to check in with yourself before you watch a video. Ask yourself what you want to get out of it and why you're watching it. Recognise that you'll probably feel more motivated afterwards, and then, and this is the important part, commit to doing something with that motivation once you've watched it. So you've managed to escape the lowest circle of tutorial hell, and you found yourself on level 2, the distraction level. If you're here, then you're watching tutorial content because you're trying to make a game and you're trying to solve problems related to making that game, which is good, but you're doing it in the wrong order. In the distraction circle, you're spending your time learning how to solve problems that you don't actually have, instead of the problems that are right in front of you, which is really risky because at best, you're likely to learn something that is useful but that you don't need right now. But at worst, if you're presented with a new and shiny technique, you might feel like you need to completely refactor your project to work it in. This can cause you to keep restarting your project over and over again, which is how you spend years not making a game. So how do you tell the difference between an important problem and a problem that you don't actually have? If you're going to escape the distraction circle of tutorial hell, then you're going to need to get your priorities straight, which means first things first. Now you might assume that first things first means to start with the very first problems you'll have in order. What should I make? How should I make it? What tools should I use? And so on. And to a certain degree, that is true. But first things first doesn't necessarily mean first chronologically. It means first in order of importance. To work that out, there's a very simple exercise that you can do. This is an extremely powerful technique because it could save you literally years of effort. Now, it's going to vary for everyone, but for most people who like the idea of making a game, I think that it's fair to say that one of the big things that stops you from doing it is how long it's likely to take versus what you believe you're going to get out of it at the end. Because even if your game is small, there's still a lot to learn, there's a lot to do, so it might take months or years to finish it. Meaning that the moments of truth, where you find out if you can actually make your idea or if it's any fun to play or if anyone's going to buy it, they all happen towards the end of your project, after you've put a huge amount of time and effort in. And trying to solve problems that you don't actually have yet will actually make that problem worse. It will increase the risk because you're using up more of your time, but the critical moments of your project, they're not any closer. If anything, they're further away. So that's the risk, that you have to learn all these skills and do all that work, and then at the end of all of that, it doesn't turn out how you hoped. Instead, first things first means focusing on your biggest risk factors first. So if your game has a big technical challenge, work it out before you do anything else. If the risk is that your game won't be fun, make an ugly playable demo as soon as you can. If you don't know if your game is going to sell, then as much as possible, try to work out if it will by testing the market. These are risk reduction exercises, and they basically work by identifying the problems that represent the biggest risk to a project being successful, and then working on them as early as you can. This is something that I've seen brilliant, successful, talented people do, where a large obstacle that's absolutely critical to how the game works has been left until really late in the game's development, which then stops the whole project in its tracks because it can't be solved. In the meantime, you might have spent days or months or years working on the parts of the game that don't actually matter as much, which is all this circle of hell is. It's the risk that you're wasting time on the wrong problems, which leads to the wrong tutorials and the wrong learning. And then that's where your time goes. Meaning that all you need to do to get out of it is to get your priorities straight. Think of the most important problems that, if you can't solve them, represent the biggest risk to the project being what you want it to be, and work on them first. We're nearly there. At this point, you're working towards an objective and you've got your priorities straight. But don't be fooled by how close we are to getting out, because if you fail to do this next step, literally nothing else, none of this matters. This is the inaction circle of tutorial hell. It's where you're learning the right things for the right reasons, in the right order, but you don't do anything about it. The way to get out of this final circle is to default to doing, not learning. So what I mean by that is that if you want to make a game, you go and you make the game until something stops you from doing that. Now, realistically, you're going to hit an obstacle immediately, in which case you might need to learn something in order to move past it. But once you do, it's important to revert back to doing, not to learning. This is the mindset shift that will get you out of tutorial hell once and for all. where your goal is to make a game, and the only reason you take tutorials or watch videos about doing that is to remove obstacles along that path. And those might still be really vague obstacles, like not knowing what to make or not knowing how to make it. But what's different is that if you know exactly what problem you're trying to solve next, you'll be able to tell when you've solved it. After which you can go back to doing what you set out to do in the first place, making your game. And if you're not sure what your next steps should be, use the link in the video description to book a free strategy session with me, and I'll help you work out how to keep your game project moving forward and how to keep you out of tutorial hell.